Hello there. The holidays are finally over. The person who was squatting on my office floor for a week has finally departed. My coffee is kicking in, so it's about time to talk some world building. Hi, I'm Matt, and once a week I break down world building techniques, tricks, and tips. And last week I did a really short video about bad world building. I put the air quotes on that because, as I said then, I don't actually like using the term bad or good when it comes to world building. So this week we are going to look at the terms that I like instead and how immersion plays a role in building better worlds. So the thing about personal taste is that they are personal. That means they are subjective. I remember years and years ago when I went and saw The Dark Knight in the theaters, and really cool intro scene with the Joker, and then he gets his first real scene and he goes, let me show you that magic trick, and puts the pencil there, and spoilers, and I saw that and I went, wow, that is great. And whatever weird stuff you guys are doing, Nolan, I am with you. This was an amazing moment. I willingly suspend my disbelief for this journey. And then I got to work the next Monday, and my coworker was like, you know what the worst part of that movie? I remember the exact moment when it did that magic trick, and that was the dumbest thing, stupidest thing I had ever seen, and it just ruined the movie for me, and I knew that it couldn't fix it. And I thought, this is the same scene, but someone whose opinions I liked, though she did say that Pearl Jam ruined music and they should have stayed in glam rock for forever, so questionable, but again, taste, subjective. That's why I like to use surveys and examine things, then use best practices rather than rules, that this is what does. No matter what, someone's going to dislike what you did, and no matter what, someone's going to like what you did, no matter how cliched, hackneyed, etc. So the goal is you can't please everyone all the time, but you can please the largest number most of the time, as many people as much as you can. So that's always my goal for this. And because good and bad are so subjective terms, they're both loaded terms, I don't like to use them. I like to use three terms instead for measuring world building, and they all involve immersion. I'm going to do a longer one about immersion probably next week because Mark P. Wolf, J.P. Wolf, anyways, in his textbook on world building, looks at three things: immersion, absorption, and saturation, and that's really worth looking into about how audiences absorb information. But anyways, right now we're just going to focus on immersion and how it is used to break up the different types of world building for me. And immersion, which we're going to get into much more later, was kind of taken in world building from virtual reality, where the idea was that you were literally immersed in another world, you are moving around it, and the idea is that the sense of actually being in another world. For the creative craft of storytelling, immersion is actually more of kind of an altered state. This is when you're no longer thinking of yourself, you are not being you, thinking about your problems, and what you're doing is you are taking part in the story, in the world, that kind of thing. You are not thinking of yourself, you are thinking of the story. Kind of not even thinking, just absorbing all the information. This works for storytelling in any form, be it book, be it someone telling you a story, or just watching a movie. And when you're immersed, you're not sitting there on your phone scrolling. That is the opposite of immersion. Immersion is when you are rapt and raptly paying attention to the story in itself. And the way that immersion comes into my three terms for looking at or measuring, assessing world building is that when they are broken. And it's all about when immersion is broken, when that altered state is disrupted and you return to yourself. And it's often disrupted by breaking one of the 4 C's, which is one of the 4 C's of world building, which is another video with a link up hopefully right now. And as I said in it, these are all kind of links in a chain. It can take some strain, but when one of them breaks, when you notice something that is inconsistent, let's say, or just doesn't abide by the laws of nature as we know it, then you kind of disrupts your immersion. You go, wait, that's not how it is, and you are no longer you're no longer experiencing the story, you're thinking about the story. Anyways, they could be minor, and they don't have to destroy the story. For instance, for me, one of the biggest ones is because I make jewelry. Here's a ring that I made one time. Ooh, yeah, anyways. And because I do that, I know the melting point of gold, and as I talked about in the book, in Game of Thrones, where he gives Viserys his golden crown by just throwing it on a campfire, that can't melt gold that way. Also in Game of Thrones, the mockingbird is the only North American bird that's a sigil for little finger, but everything else is European or Eurasian in the world. So like, a little off. Like, I don't really care. I noticed it, but didn't destroy it. It disrupted my immersion. I said, that's not how it is, but I continued on the story. But every time you break immersion, it can be cumulative. Some people can be like, one time, the Joker did this thing and I was out of the story, wasn't going to follow along. Other times they just kind of add up, and after a while you're like, I don't think they really know their own world. So immersion, just the audience regaining that sense of self because something was disrupted the immersive experience. So keep that in mind. So without further ado, I have broken out what I think of, instead of good and bad world building, into 3 different types: ineffective, effective, and inspired. Ineffective is where immersion is broken, where something has happened and people are like, that doesn't work. It is inconsistent. It is no longer compelling. These are the 4 C's, by the way. It's not complete. It just feels very small and only here for the story, and it's not creative. Like the same thing I've seen thousands of other times. Again, cumulative. Keep that in mind. So these are the ones where things were disrupted. You could still be an incredible one, an inspired world building, and have moments like Game of Thrones where like, nope, there was ineffective moments of the world building. So that's what I like to point out, those moments, ineffective moments. Something was broken, immersion was broken. And I don't know if I actually have a chart about that because it's been years since I've looked at it. But anyways, there's a chart on things that break the immersive experience. Maybe. We'll see if this actually makes it into the video. Next up is effective world building, and there's 3 sort of subcategories on that, even though the little chart shows 2. And the first one is that there are no breaks in the immersion itself. You read the story, or experienced the story from beginning to end and didn't question anything. It all worked together. It all was effective. It fulfilled its purpose, and your story was seamless from beginning to end. Great, Second type is that it stands up to scrutiny, as in you think about it for a second and you're like, wait, that's not how it is. And oh, wait, actually the rules of the story allow this to happen. Good on them, It didn't really positively, it was questionable, but it passed muster. Third type is that it breaks the immersion positively, and this is the really, really nice one. This is where you stop to savor it. You come to yourself again. Your immersion is broken so that you can look in awe of what they have done. That Dark Knight example of the Joker and the magic trick for me was a positive, effective moment because I said, yes, this is it. This was great. I love it. And I stopped and looked at it and said, yes. And you can do other things like visually. A lot of times when you see an arresting moment, I keep thinking of Lord of the Rings when they're going through the down the river and there's the statues standing there, and I can't remember the name of them, but that was just a visually arresting moment, and it was so awesome that you had to stop and go, and you paused it and like, wow, that's just gorgeous. So anyways, 3 types of the effective: no breaks, stands up to scrutiny, and then breaks it positively. Great one. Now the rarefied air is inspired, and these are the rare ones where the world invites the audience interaction via their imaginations after the story has concluded. These are the worlds that stay with us and the stories that stay with us. These are the things that we can't stop thinking about after it's done. They live in your head, basically. Every author hopes that they are, or creator hopes that they're building an inspired one, but you can't really ever be sure which is going to touch off with people. Why did Harry Potter, as I mentioned in my last video, which was kind of, magic school, but it was everything people wanted. It was compelling, and that's why you get things like cosplayers, and who are not just always cosplaying as the character themselves, but something like I've seen Jedis walking around, the conventions, and which Jedi? You're like, oh, this is the Jedi that is me, oh, okay, yeah, great. And, that the avatar is one of the really cool moments for me was when someone said, oh yeah, I named my online avatar after one of your characters. And I was like, wow. I have a lot of friends that are writers that have people who are getting tattoos of their characters and ideas and images and book covers. And you're like, wow, that is inspired world building because it has definitely stayed with those folks afterwards. That's why in my books I use my 5 exemplars of Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Avatar: Last Airbender, because those are ones that have theme parks named after them. People go to see the filming locations of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and like to dress up as avatars or which nation they are, that kind of thing. Also something, this is a personal theory that I haven't been able to look up entirely yet, but as I was saying about like the houses or anyways, I think that people, like something about inspired world building, orders its universe in a way that we in the real world like, and then can use it for identity to other people, other nerds kind of thing. Because you see that in all of the exemplars, in Star Wars, you have your light and the dark, and Harry Potter, you have your 4 houses, and people like to, those 4 houses mean something in that world, and people like to take it out of that world and use it in this world. You see people who have dating profiles, which I've read about, not that I am online dating, tell my wife, but they're like, oh, I'm a Slytherin, and so I'm looking for a Hufflepuff, or whatever the other things would be. And the houses and the house words from Game of Thrones, people like to put up the House Stark banner and that kind of thing to say like, this is us and what we believe. So there is something to be said about ordering the world in your world and then letting people take that to express themselves through your own world and identify with it. I don't know the name for that yet, but I'm still looking into it because I want to weaponize that, personally speaking. So yeah, just something to think about when you are thinking about how immersion can affect your worlds and how they can be effective, ineffective, or inspired. And I hope you keep immersion in mind, and I hope it can help you to build some better worlds.